I'm Scott L. Miller. It's the 8th of August, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. And today we're going to be talking about the worry that when you move to Nicaragua, because many of you are considering something like that, and Mike mentioned in his post that this is something he was concerned about specifically, that when you move to Nicaragua, you may not, because you're not able to work in Nicaragua, you may not be able to find things to keep yourself busy, and you may find yourself bored. And he's specifically moving up to Matagalpa, which is not a major factor in that. It's kind of applies everywhere, but we're going to talk about that right after the bump. So, will you get bored when you move to Nicaragua? Well, this is very much a personal question, of course, and part of that will also come down to, are you bored when you don't move to Nicaragua? If you were to be wherever you are, United States, Canada, Western Europe, whatever, and you were to retire, not work anymore, would you find yourself bored? Is this a universal problem that you're trying to tackle just in general, or is this a Nicaragua problem? Well, in the United States, there's all these things I would do, and when I come to Nicaragua, I expect I can't do them. Will I be able to keep myself busy? So that's an important question and something that people have to worry about. I think in general, just the high level view, and I think you know what I'm going to say, I don't think this is something you really have to worry about, but it is something that you probably need to plan for. So let's talk about it for a little bit. This came up, and he posted on an episode that we did a few months ago in Lago Apanas, up in the mountains, and we were out exploring. I was out driving with Kemi, and we were doing an episode on Hino Tepe, and we just stumbled on, we didn't stumble on the lake, we knew we wanted to go there. We drove up to the lake and stumbled on a 4x4 off-road racing event up in the mountains, and it was super interesting, and we had a really good time checking that out and doing something totally different that we had not expected to do. Ended up getting an extra day of filming out of the event. Like, the whole thing was fantastic, and it was really interesting because I've never seen anything like that in Nicaragua, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing I would go out to do. I like car races and stuff, but a 4x4 off-road, this particular, was not something, if you said this was happening, several hours away, that I've been like, whoa, that's what we got to do this weekend. But it was really interesting. There were thousands of people out there. It was a big event. The police were out keeping crowd control, and the radio stations were out there broadcasting, and there were DJs, and there were loads of people selling food, and it was a good time. And these kinds of things happen a lot. And so in that episode, we were talking about the availability of just running into all kinds of opportunities to get out and do things and be interested while you're in Nicaragua. But because many people are concerned, and for very legitimately, right, our friend Alan moved here, and he had a lot of things that he was used to doing back home for him being the Western United States. And some of those things included like car or boat shows, or going to really large rock concerts, like famous bands, Journey, Def Leppard, that kind of thing. And so those were his main forms of entertainment on the grander scale, right? Like when you're scheduling things. And then going out to restaurants and such on the day-to-day kind of basis for the most part, like many people. And so coming from the United States, if that's where you're coming from, that's a pretty common model, and people are very used to that, and we think of that as the things to do. When you get here to Nicaragua, some of those things change. We don't have car shows, we don't have boat shows, and we don't generally have giant rock concerts. We do once in a while, but they're not Journey and Def Leppard, right? They are regional, like a fairly large band from Mexico per se, for example, may come down and play. So you have those, and we have these events, but they tend to be a bit different. And that doesn't mean they're not as good, but they're different, right? So you need to be prepared for some of that. Some of that might change, but other things, right? Like going bowling, or going to the mall, or going to a musical, like a local play, or just going to a restaurant and listening to live music. All those things are still there, right? There's lots of things that you could have been doing all along, and you'll do them here as well. Now, you may not go to a big NFL event, but you'll go to a soccer game. You won't go to Major League Baseball, but you'll come to Latin American baseball. We have those things. We'll have you can go to the sports bar and watch so pretty much everything has to change a little bit because you're coming to a different country. That I hope, is more or less a given. But I think the amount that things change is not as high as people think. And so this is very personal, because if you are not someone who has activities that you want to do in the United States, or you have really specific ones that don't translate well, that could present a challenge. But if you're looking for the opportunity to simply do something to keep yourself busy, I think that there are a lot of opportunities. And I want to address this first, starting with the I can't work one. Okay. Now, I don't know what anyone does, or most anyone on the show, like what you're doing currently, right? I don't know if you're a plumber. I don't know if you're a rocket scientist. I don't know if you're a musician. Like, I don't know. But in many of those cases, there are some times that the skills and things that you have do not translate to Nicaragua in any way, and you cannot use them here. It's hard to come up with examples of that, but they certainly exist. Maybe an American lawyer, right? If you're an American lawyer, you're barred in the United States. Those skills don't translate to Nicaragua. We don't even have the same type of legal system, let alone one that you could be barred in. So there's just nothing you can do with that in that case. But I suppose you could give out free legal advice to people looking to move to America, or family in America, or something. But so I think part of this stems from there is a very strict law that you cannot work here. You can't get a work visa. That's not going to happen. So we say all the time you can't work in Nicaragua. So if you have a job that requires working in the place that you physically are, yeah, you can't work in Nicaragua. That doesn't mean you can't volunteer. It doesn't mean that you can't do projects on your own. It doesn't mean there's a lot of things. It means you cannot work that job. So we'll just use plumber, because that's one that does translate. If you're a plumber in the United States and you come to Nicaragua, well, that plumbing knowledge is potentially useful. It may not be quite as useful as a local plumber, because they're used to the local materials and local water pressure and a bunch of issues and availability and logistics that a foreign plumber may be lacking, and some of your specialty knowledge from the United States might be useless here because things aren't available or things don't work that way. But if you're a plumber and you move here, well, it's very difficult to do plumbing remotely, right? Like, we don't have like robot hands for plumbers yet. And by the time we do, the robot will probably be able to do the parts replacement without the human operating it, so that doesn't really solve the problem. But so if you're here and you're a plumber and you say, oh, I'm bored. The only thing I really enjoyed was plumbing. Well, let's work with that, right? What can you do? You're not allowed to work as a plumber, given. But you are allowed to make a YouTube channel about plumbing, and you could go out and volunteer, or you could set up your own building and do your own plumbing. However, whatever makes sense for making a show, right? It could be adventures of volunteer plumbing in Central America, and that's your show. Or it could be teaching plumbing techniques, and so you set up a little studio, you get I'm not a plumber, right? I don't know what you need, but you would have, different types of pipes and different types of fixtures and different types of, sinks and toilets or whatever. And you could have them in a studio setting, and you could make a really interesting show where you teach those techniques and just do it in a studio, or whatever, right? There's all these different things you could do. You could go out to schools and go to, whatever, and just volunteer. Be like, look, I'm here. I want to do some plumbing. Or you could get involved with someone who does something, or you could try mentoring someone. Something like that. There's lots of things, all without leaving the arena of plumbing, that you can do if the issue is that you're bored. If the issue is that you need to make money, you need to be thinking in potentially different ways. YouTube doesn't pay a whole lot, trust me, and volunteering doesn't pay anything. You generally lose money. But if the issue is solely that you've retired and you're bored, then these things are not necessarily a big deal. If you were a retired photographer, for example, and the thing you liked doing in the United States was taking photographs of flowers. Well, you can't be a flower photographer in Nicaragua, but that's probably not a job anyway. Like, you probably couldn't have done it whether or not you were legally allowed to, but you certainly are allowed to have a camera. You're certainly allowed to take pictures of flowers, and you're certainly allowed to sell them elsewhere and run a business somewhere else. So if this was me, I've never made money on my photographs, so I don't have a model for this, but I have been a photographer. I should say I've never made money selling photographs. I used to make money as a professional photographer, but I was staff, right? It's a little bit different. So if I went out and I took some flower pictures, as I like to do, and I then had those pictures, I can set up a business in the United States and sell those pictures through stock agencies. I can take commissions, but I have to be employed from the United States. I'm getting paid in the United States. I'm American, that's why. If you're Canadian, then it would be Canada, right? Whatever, just not Nicaragua. That money can then come in, so maybe it's a fraction of what you're used to, but you can keep working. You just can't work in Nicaragua. You can be in Nicaragua, but your work has to be somewhere else. So for a very large number of people, if your issue is boredom, right? Remember, we're only addressing boredom in this particular video. If that's the issue, you can often, very often, find a way to keep working elsewhere, probably at a fraction of the money, but also maybe with more flexibility. Or maybe you can do it in a way that you really liked, or you can stop doing, maybe you were a photographer, but it was like a dental photography and you hated it, or as product photography and it was okay, but you're tired of taking pictures of food, but now you can go out and do stock photography and sell that instead. And yeah, you don't know if it's going to pay the bills, but you don't need to. You're retiring and it's only about boredom. Then fantastic. Get out there and do stock photography and make this an awesome thing that you love, right? That's very plausible. That's very possible. It may be something that works really well for you to keep you interested, and it may be an improvement if your job was not exactly what you love to do. Now, for me, I created a career long ago that was more or less exactly what I wanted to do. After 25 years, I'm starting to be like, well, I'd really like to get into some different things, but it's not that I didn't love it all those years, and I still do love it. It was designed to do that. Just sometimes people change, or, after 25 years of doing a thing, you just need some variety. So for me, there's a lot of that. And like, for example, I'm doing this YouTube channel here and several other YouTube channels and doing a lot of media and content creation and really enjoying that. Those are things I didn't do more than just the tiniest bit before I moved. And is it paying the bills? No, not at all. Is it covering some of its cost? Yes, it is. But is it keeping me busy? Is it keeping me very occupied? Is it giving me excuses to go do other things? Yes. In my case, not only is the activity of making the show for you good, but in many cases, for example, when there's a concert and I go do a live stream, well, it gets me out the door. I've got to get to this event. I go to a restaurant. I eat at the restaurant. I set up. I get to know the band. I know a lot of the people. We're handing out T-shirts. We're setting up the thing. We're taking the live stream. I'm running around with a camera doing photographs during the live stream. I'm sometimes operating multiple cameras. Like, I'm staying busy. It's not just, hey, you can go to a restaurant. Hey, maybe they'll have live music. Hey, maybe you can check it out. I'm actively doing a project, and I don't make any money from it, but it helps the band. The band appreciates it. People who can't make it to the concert appreciate it. The venue appreciate it because it gets news out about their venue. There's all these things that I'm able to put together because I'm just getting involved and doing stuff. And so by having this, in my case, I guess you could say it's a hobby instead of a business, it is enabling me to then create a need for doing other things that I enjoy. And so it accumulates, and I actually stay incredibly busy. And the last thing I would imagine being is bored. It's funny to me in a way that so many people say, when I get to Nicaragua, I'm worried about being bored. I have the exact opposite reaction, as I often do with many things. When I go to the United States, I'm never really bored because I'm there so little. But if I'm there for a long period of time, I don't find anything really boring, but I find it less exhilarating. Partially because it's just the effort of going out is so much more, partially because the cost of going out is so much more, and partially because just the culture and the things you do, you're so much more likely to just turn on the television and watch a show than to go out and meet with people and do something interesting. And here, you're so driven, you're so just assumed that you're going to go out and do things in public and be with people, that I think it makes you do it a lot more. Like, the expectation here is that you're going to go out and do some activity 5-6 nights a week. And in the United States, it's flipped. It's expected that you might go out once a week, but you're expected to stay in and watch TV 5-6 nights of the week. And that alone completely changes a huge part of the culture and a huge part of your experience. And so for me, being here, it's always a struggle to get time away from all the activities, to have some time to relax. I find life here very relaxing. It's very tranquil. It's very chill. It's very relaxed, but it's also full of fun activity, full of entertainment, full of doing things and hanging out with people, being with friends, having drinks, listening to live music, going on adventures. The amount when I lived in the United States that we would just hop in the car and say, you know what, we live in Dallas. Let's go to Oklahoma City for the weekend. I've done that, but once, twice in the decade plus that I lived in Texas, very unlikely. How often do we do that here? Not every weekend, but it is a completely normal thing for us or anyone that we know to say, let's go to Managua for the weekend and do a different city. Let's go to Chinandega for dinner. Let's go to Matagalpa and go do something fun up there. Let's take the kids and go to the Nindiri Dinosaur Park in Masaya. Let's go see a volcano. Let's go for a drive. Let's go see another part of the country. Those things are things we do not every weekend, but maybe once a month, we'll just hop and go somewhere. And as I record this, we're getting ready to go to Granada soon to record the Ipico. We're looking at going to Masaya to do some adventurous stuff there. How all of this will affect you is a very personal thing. If the thing you like is going out to restaurants and listening to live music, I think you're going to find Nicaragua to be overwhelming with options. You're going to find that this is something you can do all the time. Check out Nicarumba.com and see all the things going on today, tomorrow, whatever. And that's just getting started. Only a few cities are listed. Once all the departamentos are feeding in information, once people have got the word out about that, there's going to be 100 to 1,000 times, literally, the number of events that are there now. Pretty much that is a few highlights of Managua, and a good chunk of Leon is the only things that are in there. Matagalpa, Esteli, Hinotepe, Hinotega, Didiamba, Masaya, they're not really reporting yet. There's a lot of, San Juan del Sur, nothing. Right? Rivas, nothing. None of them are putting in information yet. Once those big places are starting to put things in, it's going to just expand like crazy. And even here in Leon, a lot of places aren't putting things in yet, and it's the slow season. That's something when people are looking at it, this is the off season. A lot of places that are generally big venues, Surfing Turtle, for example, has no events going on. They're aware of the site. They're ready to put in when the time comes. But right now, there's nothing. So that gives you a hint of just how much there is to potentially do. And a lot of cultural events are not in there yet. Right now, it's mostly bars and restaurants showing bands, but there's a lot of other things going on. There's classes. There's just all kinds of things. So I think that Nicaragua gives you a lot of going out options and pressure, right? Like people will expect you to go out. And I think Nicaragua gives you a lot of adventure because it's not the country you grew up in, I assume, and the one you spent most of your life in. That means that it's full of interesting, different things that you can go do and explore. So if you like to travel at all, traveling within the country is very easy and very cheap. Whether you're driving or taking a bus, doesn't matter. They're very accessible. And so you can go out and go see a different city, go try different restaurants, go see different bands, go explore waterfalls, go hiking in the mountains. There's all these things to do. And remember, it's so much lower cost, almost assumed, than anywhere you could possibly be living currently, that your ability to go out and do things is so much more accessible, right? If you want to hire a driver to take you somewhere, you want to borrow a car, you want to pay for public transportation, all that becomes so accessible. You want to go out to eat more often because it's more interesting. Go do that. You can. It's affordable. Presumably, right? Go find work. Find ways to keep yourself busy. If you have absolutely no way to work or no desire to do work that you've ever done, and you really want to be away from anything that might generate money for whatever reason, and that's fine. A lot of people are. They don't want to have any pressure to make money, even if they have plenty. Like just having that mechanism kind of makes you feel like you should. Consider finding a hobby that you can do. For me, photography and videography, they weren't new. It's not like I never did them, but I never did them like this. Now I've got much better cameras, many more cameras. I have a workflow. I have tools. I do studio lights, all kinds of things. And I didn't do photography for a while, more or less. I mean, you always take a picture or two, but now I'm starting to get more cameras, that like photographic cameras and video cameras. I do both. I have a number of hobbies. I have so many things that just keep me super busy. And yeah, they don't make money. It's just a hobby, but it's easy to have hobbies here. And of course, if the thing that you like to do is watch television, you can still do that. We still have Netflix. We still have Disney Plus. We still have all that kind of stuff that people do back home. So I'd love, Mike, for you or anyone else who is having these concerns, get down in the comments and say, here's things I like to do currently. How do you think those might translate to Nicaragua? I think the individual cases are worth discussing. And I always need topics for the show, so please, that would be great. Get down in the comments, say hi if nothing else, but certainly ask questions, give me ideas for things we should discuss. I'm really into horticulture, what do I do? I'm really into scientific research of this type, what do I do? Let's get some ideas going, right? And let's talk, like, here's work I do currently. I know I can't work in Nicaragua. Don't ask me how to work in Nicaragua. Don't say, well, I think my career is one that Nicaraguans are going to want, and they're going to they're going to give me a free pass on the you can't be employed in Nicaragua system. Don't ask that, because it's not going to happen. You know the answer. I've been crystal clear on that answer. But if you say, I'm a plumber, now by trade, and I enjoy it. I don't want to give it up particularly. But I know I can't keep doing it, and I want to move to Nicaragua more than I want to keep being a plumber or keep being a whatever graphic designer. How do I translate that into something I can keep doing without needing to make money because I'm retiring? Or maybe you do need to make money, depending on who's asking. But if it's Mike who's giving it appears to be not. Ask those questions. Let's talk about specific examples, because I think people really miss a lot of how easy it is to do things, both from a remote standpoint and from how to think about where you work, and how easy it is to make money while living in Nicaragua but not working in Nicaragua, and how easy it is to find things to keep you occupied. But the key is figuring out what is your interest, right? If you're interested in painting, living in Nicaragua is going to allow you to do more painting. If your interest is being a musician, well, living in Nicaragua is going to give you more opportunities to be a musician. Maybe not to make money as one. You can't go charge the bar for your band to play, but you can go volunteer and play. They would love that. And you can always busk on the street and not take money. There's lots of things you can do. If the thing you want to do is be a musician, if the thing you want to do is be an artist, if the thing you want to do is be a plumber, and it's not about making money, you've got ways to do nearly every activity that you enjoy. There's going to be exceptions, but the bulk of them are available here, and you can do it in a cheaper, more interesting way in most cases. I think that when you really dig into what is it you wish you could be doing, what is the range of things you enjoy, how do we do those things in Nicaragua, I think the act of making all those things cheaper, the act of so many more things are more flexible here, so many more things are needed here, it is really easy to find niches that you can get into and really enjoy yourself. And when you want to sit on the veranda and look at the garden or look out over the mountains and just enjoy life, those things are going to be accessible too. I know that Matagalpa has less nightlife than here in Leon. Like, we're pretty wild here, but they have a bit going on too. There's a load of restaurants, load of coffee shops. There are places that do music at night. Nicaragua is going to be upping that game all over the country. As a country that is dedicated to going out constantly, Nicaragua is still going to turn that up by making more people able to go out and find the live music and find other events and activities more easily. That stuff is going to just increase, right? And all of this is before we talk about the option for some people, not necessarily everyone, of investing as a means of keeping yourself busy. You can't make money working here, but you can invest here. As I say in many videos, don't invest thinking that investments are going to make money. That is very unlikely. But if you're investing to keep yourself busy, or investing for fun, investing because you love doing certain things, then absolutely that is an option that may apply to you. And just because you invest doesn't mean you're investing for residency, which has a certain bar. If you're investing just for fun, you can invest any amount you want. $5, $5 million, doesn't matter. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you would like to support the channel in a more concrete way and help me afford all of these things for my hobby and bringing all of this to you, because I can't work this as a job here. You can support the channel directly by buying me a coffee at the link above, buymeacoffee.com/